Anna sits by the rain-speckled window of her small apartment, tracing the condensation with a finger, as if she could rewrite the past on the glass. And she thinks about how quietly love arrived in her life, not with fireworks or declarations, but with the subtle way Julian laughed at her clumsy attempts at baking, the soft encouragement in his voice when she hesitated to speak. And she realizes now that the moments she dismissed as ordinary were actually shaping the parts of her that needed to grow, teaching her patience, kindness, and the courage to open herself slowly. And sometimes she catches herself smiling at the memory of him, not out of longing, but out of recognition that someone else once saw her completely, flaws and all, without judgment. And in this quiet acknowledgement, she feels a strange mixture of warmth and ache, because that love didn't stay, but it left a trace that has quietly reshaped how she approaches the world, how she listens to others, how she allows herself to pause in conversations, to savor small gestures, to notice emotions without immediately trying to fix them. And Anna knows that she will carry this influence forward, like a secret compass guiding her inner life, teaching her that intimacy is not always about possession or permanence, but about resonance, the soft alignment of hearts that, even if brief, leaves an indelible mark. And as she watches the raindrops trail down the glass, she realizes that part of Julian still exists inside her, not as someone to return to, but as a gentle reminder that love can be quiet, transformative, and enduring in ways no one else can see. Anna walks slowly through the quiet streets after sunset, the soft glow of streetlights reflecting in the puddles at her feet, and she thinks about how her life has subtly shifted since Julian left, not through obvious absence, but through the way her own habits and thoughts have changed, the way she now notices silence without fearing it, how she pauses in conversations to really listen instead of rushing to respond. And she remembers the evenings when he would sit beside her, his presence calm and grounding, and how she used to dismiss the simplicity of those moments, unaware that love often works quietly, leaving invisible traces. And now she feels those traces and the way she approaches new relationships, in the gentleness she extends to herself, in the patience she allows when she hesitates or falters, and sometimes she catches herself smiling at memories that once felt trivial, the way he tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, the way he lingered on her words with quiet curiosity. And she realizes that love isn't always about holding on or clinging, but about shaping you, leaving you capable of seeing, feeling, and existing differently. And as the wind brushes her face, she senses a soft, lingering presence inside her, a kind of emotional compass forged by intimacy, teaching her that connection can transform without permanence, that absence doesn't erase impact, and that the person you were when someone truly saw you is a self you carry forward, learning to navigate life with awareness, care, and the quiet courage to remain open, even after love has moved on. Anna sits on the balcony of her apartment as the first hints of dawn color the sky, a cup of untouched tea warming her hands. And she thinks about how Julian's presence once made the world feel slower, softer, more deliberate. And even though he is no longer beside her, she notices how much of herself still carries the imprint of that closeness. The way she now observes small gestures with patience, how she allows pauses in conversation to exist without rushing to fill them, how she measures her words not to impress but to connect. And she recalls the quiet evenings when he would read aloud while she drew, the way his laughter broke through her self-doubt without effort. And she realizes that intimacy isn't only about shared moments, but about the internal changes those moments inspire, the courage to exist fully in someone's presence, the openness to be seen without shielding or editing. And as the sunlight spills across the balcony floor, Anna feels a tender awareness that love doesn't vanish with distance, it transforms, teaching her how to inhabit herself with grace, how to recognize subtle emotional currents in others, how to respond with empathy, and even in his absence, she senses a soft echo of Julian's influence, a guide for how she moves through life, how she listens, how she allows herself to feel deeply without fear. And she understands that the quiet power of love is not in possession, but in the lasting resonance it leaves inside you, shaping the way you continue to experience connection, intimacy, and the hidden, enduring truths of the heart. Anna walks slowly through the small, tree-lined park near her apartment, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the path, and she thinks about how Julian's absence has left her with a strange mixture of emptiness and clarity. Because while she misses the warmth of his presence, she also notices the ways she has grown into herself in the space he no longer occupies, the patience she now affords her own thoughts, the way she lingers on fleeting moments without needing to capture or control them. And she remembers the afternoons they spent talking about everything and nothing, how he listened not just to her words, but to the silences between them, how that quiet attention taught her what it meant to be fully present. And she realizes that intimacy isn't always about being together. Sometimes it's about learning to carry another person's influence inside you, letting it shape the way you think, feel, and move without relying on them to be there. And as a breeze brushes the leaves around her, she feels a tender awareness of the love that once existed, not as something lost, but as a subtle guide for how she approaches connection now, how she chooses to be gentle, how she allows herself to be vulnerable without fear. And even in moments of solitude, she senses Julian's echo, a quiet reminder that love can transform quietly, leaving behind not longing or regret, but a deeper understanding of presence, patience, and the delicate ways two hearts can leave traces on each other that persist long after they part, shaping the person you are and the way you are capable of being seen and seeing others in return. Anna sits by the window again, the city lights flickering in the evening haze, and she reflects on how her world has subtly shifted since Julian was part of it, not through dramatic events, but through the quiet influence he left behind, the ways she now notices pauses in conversation, the weight of a look, the gentle sway of emotions that don't need words. And she remembers the nights when they simply existed side by side, the soft cadence of his voice reading poetry aloud, the way he would wait for her thoughts without interruption. And she realizes that those moments reshaped her perception of connection, teaching her that love is not about possession, but about resonance, about how two inner worlds can align briefly and leave an indelible mark. And as she traces the raindrops on the glass, she feels a tender mixture of warmth and ache, aware that Julian's presence continues to guide the way she listens, the way she allows herself to be patient with herself and others, and the way she recognizes that intimacy can exist quietly, without spectacle, that it can transform and linger even when it no longer manifests outwardly. And Anna understands that this subtle, enduring influence is perhaps the most profound form of love, a quiet calibration of the heart and mind, teaching her to be fully present, to feel deeply, and to carry the lessons of connection forward, shaping every interaction, every pause, every soft, reflective moment she allows herself in the stillness of her own life. Anna leans back in her chair, the soft hum of the city below blending with the rhythm of her own breathing, and she thinks about how Julian's presence, even in absence, has become a quiet compass for her emotions, guiding the way she approaches others, the way she navigates her own thoughts, and the way she allows herself to feel without rushing or defending. Remembering the afternoons they spent wandering aimlessly through bookstores, how he noticed the smallest details, a favorite line in a poem, a hesitant glance at a painting, and how that attentiveness taught her the value of truly observing, of listening fully, of existing without constant justification. And she realizes now that the love they shared didn't vanish with distance. It left behind a refined awareness, a gentle attunement to herself and the world around her. And sometimes she catches herself smiling at moments she never thought would matter, the way he tucked a scarf around her neck on a windy evening, the way his hand lingered briefly on hers in a quiet gesture of reassurance. And she understands that intimacy is less about the physical presence and more about the subtle, enduring shifts it causes in one's inner life, shaping patience, empathy, and the courage to remain open. And as the night deepens outside her window, Anna feels a soft, steady presence within herself, a quiet echo of Julian's influence, guiding her toward the kind of connection she now knows she is capable of, both giving and receiving, not with expectation, but with clarity, awareness, and the gentle strength that comes from truly being seen. Anna walks along the riverbank at twilight, the water reflecting the fading colors of the sky, and she reflects on how Julian's quiet presence once shaped the rhythm of her days, how the simplest gestures, a shared silence, a soft laugh, a hand brushing hers, taught her patience, attentiveness, and the courage to lower the walls she had built around herself. And even though he is no longer beside her, she feels the subtle imprints of those moments guiding her still. The way she approaches conversations with gentleness, the way she listens for the unsaid, the way she allows her emotions to settle instead of reacting too quickly. And she remembers how he would notice the small inconsistencies in her moods, the fleeting expressions she tried to hide, and how that quiet understanding made her feel fully seen, not as someone to fix or impress, but as someone complete. And Anna realizes that love doesn't always leave in dramatic waves. Sometimes it dissolves quietly, leaving behind soft internal shifts that change how you move through life, how you connect, how you feel. And she feels a tender mixture of gratitude and longing, aware that intimacy is not only about being together, but about the ways someone can teach you to inhabit yourself fully, to carry presence, awareness, and openness. And even in the stillness of her solitary walk, she senses Julian's echo, a quiet compass reminding her that love's deepest impact is often invisible, felt not in possession, but in transformation, shaping her heart and mind long after the moments themselves have passed. Anna sits on the edge of her bed as the morning light filters softly through the curtains, the quiet of the apartment wrapping around her like a gentle reminder of how much has changed. And she thinks about Julian, not with longing, but with awareness, noticing how his presence, once so immediate, so shaping, has left her with subtle lessons she carries even now. The patience to pause before reacting, the courage to be tender without expectation, the ability to notice small gestures in others that might otherwise go unseen. And she remembers the late nights when they would lie side by side, sharing thoughts that felt too fragile to speak aloud, the quiet intimacy of being understood without explanation. And she realizes that love's power often isn't in possession or permanence, but in the internal recalibration it inspires, how it reshapes the rhythms of your mind, the texture of your feelings, and the depth with which you engage the world. And even though Julian is absent, she senses his influence in the gentleness she extends to herself, in the way she listens with more attention, in the moments when she allows emotions to settle instead of rushing to fix them. And as she looks out at the city waking slowly beyond the window, Anna feels a soft, enduring connection that transcends presence, a quiet compass guiding her toward openness, awareness, and emotional honesty. And she understands that this is perhaps the truest form of love. Not a story that ends, but a subtle, persistent transformation, a tender imprint left on the heart that quietly teaches how to carry connection, care, and vulnerability into every new day. Anna walks slowly through the quiet streets after an evening rain, the reflections of streetlights shimmering in puddles, and she thinks about Julian, not with sadness, but with a tender clarity, noticing how the time they shared reshaped the way she experiences herself and the world, how she now pauses before speaking, listens more deeply, and allows for emotions to settle without needing to explain or justify them. And she remembers the small, unremarkable moments that once felt ordinary, the way he would tilt his head when listening, the gentle humor in his voice, the quiet patience he showed when she hesitated. And she realizes now that love's lasting imprint is not in grand gestures, but in these subtle and visible shifts, in the internal awareness that transforms how you inhabit life. And as she traces the pattern of raindrops on a window, she senses Julian's presence lingering softly, like an echo that guides her toward openness, empathy, and emotional honesty, reminding her that intimacy is not about holding on to someone, but about allowing connection to refine the way you perceive, feel, and respond. And even in moments of solitude, she feels the enduring lesson of their time together, the quiet understanding that love can change you profoundly without being permanent, that it can leave a gentle, guiding imprint that teaches patience, presence, and the courage to remain vulnerable. And Anna walks forward with a subtle awareness that this transformation, more than anything else, is what she truly carries with her, shaping every step, every thought, every interaction with a quiet, enduring grace.